It began with a crackle, a flash of blue, and the mighty president of our HOA jumping backward like she'd just grabbed a live wire. Her scream tore through Maple Creek Lane, loud enough to rattle windows and wake every golden retriever within 50 yards. She stood there, hair puffed, eyes wild, shaking her hand like she was trying to fling off sin itself. From behind my window, mug of coffee in hand, I whispered, "Lesson delivered." See, for months, Scarlett Taylor, our beloved neighborhood dictator, had been quietly stealing my mail. I don't mean random junk flyers or pizza coupons. I mean contracts, checks, even my tax documents. So I decided it was time for a little shock therapy, legal, non-lethal, and unforgettable. But before we got there, you need the backstory. 8 months earlier, life on Maple Creek Lane was aggressively normal. I'd finally escaped the chaos of freelancing from noisy apartments and coffee shops and bought my dream home. 2 stories. White fence, maple tree in the yard, a mailbox that looked like it belonged in a Norman Rockwell painting. Mornings smelled like cut grass. The mail truck arrived like clockwork. I'd sit on the porch, coffee steaming, wave at joggers, and pretend suburban peace wasn't secretly a competition in politeness. Then one morning, my bank statement didn't show up. The next week, my insurance renewal vanished. My tax forms? Gone. At first, I blamed the wind. Then I blamed myself. Then I called the post office. A woman named Linda answered, voice flat with professional fatigue. "All your mail shows delivered, sir." "Delivered where?" I asked. "To your address?" "Well then, either my mailbox is a portal or someone's stealing my mail." Linda gave the kind of chuckle people give right before hanging up. Within a week, the consequences hit. Late fees, a missed contract worth 50 grand. My credit dinged, not because I messed up, but because someone else did. That night, I stared out the window at my perfect little street, the sprinklers whispering, the cicadas buzzing. Something felt off, like static in the air before a storm. The next morning, I mentioned it to my neighbor, Helen. A retired teacher who knows everyone's business before they do. She frowned. "That's strange. Scarlett's been walking around checking mailboxes lately." Scarlett Taylor, HOA president, mid-50s, pastel blazers, pearl earrings, and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She drove a white Mercedes that somehow sparkled even in shade. Everyone in Maple Creek feared her in that polite suburban way, half eye roll, half survival instinct. She fined people for trash can violations and once made a landscaper redo an entire hedge because it was 2 inches off symmetry. If anyone could weaponize mailboxes, it was Scarlett. I wasn't about to make wild accusations. So I did what any normal, mildly paranoid homeowner would do after binge-watching detective shows. I installed a camera. Not obvious, stealthy. A motion-activated mini-lens hidden in a wooden birdhouse beside the mailbox. It had a perfect view of the curb. For 3 days, nothing. Then on the 4th, the camera caught movement. 37 p.m. Wednesday. Sunlight. Quiet street. And there she was, Scarlett Taylor. Pastel blazer, clipboard in hand, strolling up like she owned federal property. She looked left, looked right, opened my mailbox, thumbed through the envelopes, and took 3. No gloves, no hesitation, no shame. I replayed it 3 times, jaw on the floor. She wasn't just nosy, she was confident. The kind of confidence only someone with power, pearls, and 0 accountability can have. The next morning, I printed screenshots, 8 in total, and marched to her house. She opened the door with that saccharine smile. "Daniel, everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I said. "Except for the part where you keep stealing my mail." Her smile faltered, then rebooted into polite laughter. "Oh, no. I was just checking for misdelivered letters. Our boxes look identical. They're different colors," I said. "And yours is on another street." Enter Brad. Her husband, mid-50s, golf shirt tucked tighter than his patience. "You accusing my wife of a crime? That's defamation." "I have video," I said. He pointed at me like a courtroom villain. "Then you'd better be careful who you show it to. The HOA doesn't tolerate troublemakers." Door slam. 2 days later, an envelope arrived from the HOA. Violation. Unauthorized surveillance equipment. She'd flipped my evidence into a weapon. I sat there holding the letter, equal parts furious and impressed. "All right, Scarlett," I muttered. "If the system won't stop you, I'll build one that will." I called Marcus, my old college roommate, now an electrical engineer with a wicked grin. "Ever electrify a mailbox?" I asked. "Can't say I have," he said. "But I'm intrigued." Within an hour, we were sketching a blueprint. A 12-volt battery, small capacitor, motion sensor, triggered by the mailbox door. Enough current to surprise, not to injure. A warning beep to stay within legal bounds. Marcus laughed, basically a very aggressive doorbell. "Exactly. She's overdue for one." Marcus's garage smelled like solder and revenge. We spent 2 evenings wiring, testing, and laughing at how ridiculous but righteous it felt. When we finished, he volunteered as the first test subject. He opened the mock mailbox. Beep, zap, jump, swear, laugh. Perfect. Startlement with a side of humility. We calibrated everything. Safe, precise, effective. Added a fail-safe. The system would disable during USPS hours. And a warning sign. Property protected. Electric deterrent installed. Sunday night. Under cover of suburban quiet, we installed it. Marcus tightened the final bolt. Stepped back and said, "Zero ambiguity." "My friend." I hammered the sign into the post. Admired the birdhouse camera watching overhead, and felt the satisfaction of turning fear into engineering. Before flipping the system on, I ran a checklist. Beep loud enough? Pulse short, non-lethal? Daytime disable works? Warning visible from 3 feet? Check. I emailed Officer Ramirez, the local cop who'd once taken my complaint. For documentation, I wrote. Security system installed, non-lethal, legally marked. If Scarlett decided to play the victim again, I'd have the paperwork ready. Monday morning arrived bright and calm. I brewed coffee like it was a ritual and watched the live feed. The mailbox gleamed under the maple tree. The red LED blinked. Armed. I loaded it with decoy envelopes, fake bank logos, official seals, bait for the queen bee. Hours passed. The mailman came and went unbothered. The system stayed idle, perfectly behaved. Then, in the heat of afternoon, Scarlett's white Mercedes glided to a stop. She stepped out, clipboard in hand, sunglasses reflecting the whole neighborhood back at itself. My heart ticked like a metronome. She looked both ways, approached my mailbox, and with all the self-assurance in the world, opened the lid. The beep sounded, a sharp, mechanical don't. She froze. Confusion, then pride, then defiance. Her hand went back in. Scarlett jumped like she'd been launched from a trampoline. The clipboard flew, the coral blazer puffed, and she landed on her lawn, shrieking. Neighbors peeked out. One kid whispered, "Whoa!" Someone filmed. Scarlett stood, red-faced and furious, and stormed up my path. She pounded my door. "You psycho! You assaulted me!" I opened slowly, calm as caffeine. It's posted clearly. "Do not touch. This is illegal. I'm calling the police." "Please do," I said. "Bring them the footage, too." Minutes later, 2 cruisers rolled up. Officers Ramirez and Harris stepped out, trying and failing not to smile. Ramirez watched the video clips, brows raised. Scarlett's hand, her thefts, her stunned jump, undeniable. "Ma'am," he said, "tampering with mail is a federal offense." "Why were you touching his box?" I was inspecting for violations." "Of what, federal property?" Her words stumbled. Logic evaporated. "Sir," Ramirez told me, "your system's clearly labeled non-lethal, and you've got documentation." "You're fine," Scarlett gawked, trembling with indignation. Brad rubbed his temples like a man watching his retirement implode. "You'll regret this," she shouted. "Then I'll buy more wire," I said. The officers chuckled. The crowd behind the hedges giggled. That night, the footage hit social media. Caption, HOA President Gets Electrified Justice. By sunrise, my mailbox was a local landmark. Cars slowed for selfies. Someone taped a note to the post. "You did what we all dreamed of doing." Scarlett vanished indoors. Rumor said she was lawyering up. But guilt on camera is hard to lawyer out of. 2 days later, a knock came, not from her, but from 2 men in suits. Agent Rogers' U.S. Postal Inspection Service. Calm, polite, eyes like steel. Mr. White, we appreciate your cooperation. Mind if we review your footage? This might tie to other cases. Other cases? Turns out several neighbors had reported missing mail. Scarlett's inspections weren't just about me. Be my guest, I said. Maple Creek's never been this exciting. He smiled faintly. We'll see if your HOA president agrees. Within hours, the agents were canvassing the street, knocking on doors. Some neighbors hesitated. Others, especially Mrs. Peterson, were thrilled. That woman stole my pension checks, she said, waving her cane. I told everyone she was crooked. By lunchtime, the feds had enough testimony to make their move. By early afternoon, Maple Creek Lane looked like a live broadcast. 2 unmarked black sedans rolled in. Gold lettering across the windshields, United States Postal Inspection Service. Neighbors lined their windows like extras in a courtroom drama. Agent Rogers led the charge. Calm. Mid-40s, the face of a man who's seen every flavor of suburban scandal. He stopped at Scarlett Taylor's perfect white-columned porch and knocked once. Mrs. Taylor, he said, we have a federal warrant. We believe you're in possession of stolen U.S. mail. Scarlett blinked hard, her practiced smile twitching. This is outrageous. I'm the one who enforces the rules here. Her husband Brad appeared behind her, sleeves rolled, voice tired. Just cooperate, Scarlett. You told them, didn't you? She snapped. No, he said quietly. But maybe I should have. That single line cracked the porcelain. Agent stepped inside. And within minutes, boxes began coming out. Stacks of envelopes, some opened, some still sealed, all neatly labeled with neighbors' names. Rogers flipped through a binder, eyebrows climbing. She kept records, he muttered. Dates, addresses, even notes. This wasn't curiosity. It's an operation. From across the street, Mrs. Peterson hollered, You stole my husband's birthday card, you witch! Scarlett's voice trembled. I was protecting the community from disorganization. Rogers didn't even look up. From the mail? The crowd snorted. When they finally let her out, wrists cuffed in front like a DIY martyr, the applause was spontaneous. Brad stood off to the side, shoulders slumped, whispering to me as they passed. I told her this would happen. Scarlett turned, eyes blazing. You think you've won, Daniel? You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. Just better grounded, the door shut. The sedans rolled away, and for the first time in years, Maple Creek Lane exhaled. That evening, Agent Rogers returned, clipboard under one arm. We recovered mail going back 4 years, he said. Checks, legal docs, prescriptions, she cataloged them like trophies. Even kept a folder titled Ungrateful Residents. I stared. So? The HOA president was basically running a petty crime museum, he smirked. Pretty much. She's facing multiple federal counts, mail theft, obstruction, abuse of authority. By sunset, Brad was dragging suitcases to his car. He paused at my driveway. She thought the HOA made her untouchable, he said. Turns out federal law disagreed. Then he looked at my mailbox and almost smiled. Guess someone finally told her no. The next morning, agents delivered bundles of recovered letters to every doorstep. It was like Christmas and closure combined. Mrs. Peterson sat on her porch, opening one envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a card from her late husband, written 2 years earlier. Even if I'm gone, remember, the world is still kind. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She looked up at me and whispered, You brought him back, and for the first time in this entire absurd saga, the satisfaction turned into something softer. Peace. That evening, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Scarlett's gold-trimmed nameplate was gone, replaced with a paper one. Acting chair, Helen Murray. Helen cleared her throat. First order of business, cancel every ridiculous fine issued by Mrs. Taylor. Applause thundered. Second, community potluck this weekend. We survived tyranny. That potluck became legendary. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years laughed over casseroles. Kids chalked the sidewalks. Someone brought a cake shaped like a mailbox, complete with tiny lightning bolts of yellow icing. Across the top, in bright red letters, Justice delivered. Marcus showed up, toolbox still in his trunk, and handed me a cold beer. to voltage vindication and creative engineering. We clinked bottles. And to never underestimating a 12-volt battery, I said. Helen raised a glass of lemonade. From now on, no board member touches private data or mail. Term limits are mandatory, and background checks for anyone who enjoys clipboards. The laughter was real this time, light, human. For once, Maple Creek sounded like a neighborhood, not a dictatorship. Over the next few weeks, more mail returned. Each envelope told a story: lost checks, forgotten apologies, old love letters. But one stood out. Mrs. Peterson framed her husband's card in glass and set it on her porch. "He always said there's still good in people," she told me. Guess he was right. Even if it took a little electricity to prove it. That line stuck with me. A month later, I checked my beautifully humming mailbox, now sporting a small plaque that read, "Respect Boundaries." A familiar voice called from the curb. It was Brad, hands in pockets. "Looking 10 years younger. Just picking up the last of my things," he said. "Honestly, I'm not sorry it ended." She blamed me, didn't she? I asked. "Oh, constantly." "Said you electrocuted her reputation." I grinned, not inaccurate. We shook hands, and as he drove away, I realized I didn't feel triumph anymore, just closure. 6 months later, the lawns were still perfect, but the mood was different, lighter, freer. No memos taped to doors, no fines for grass height. The new HOA newsletter featured bake sales, dog adoptions, movie nights. Then one morning, an envelope sat in my box. No return address. Familiar cursive. Inside was a postcard, a gray concrete building behind a chain-link fence. Caption: Federal Correctional Institution, Greenville. The message said, "You ruined my life, but I still think you cheated." "Scarlett." I stared at it for a long minute, half laughing, half sighing. Then I pinned it to my corkboard beside a photo of my mailbox gleaming in the sun. Above it, I wrote in marker, "Accountability Conducts." That evening, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching families walk dogs down Maple Creek Lane, the same street that had once felt like a stage for Scarlett's power plays. Now it felt alive again. Someone called out, "Hey, Daniel, you're a legend!" I raised my mug. Just an electrician for justice. Laughter rolled down the street, easy and genuine, and I thought about Scarlett, the way small authority can turn poisonous when no one pushes back. How she mistook control for leadership, fear for respect. What this taught me is simple. Boundaries aren't just about fences or mailboxes. They're about dignity. About not letting people take what's yours, whether it's mail, peace, or self-respect. Scarlett believed power meant control. But real power is restraint. Knowing when to fight and how to do it without losing your humanity. If you've ever dealt with someone like her, a bully in a blazer, hiding behind rules, remember, silence feeds them. Documentation and persistence defeat them. And if you can add a spark of creativity, well, sometimes justice hums quietly in 12 volts, so stand firm. Stay kind, and if necessary, wire your mailbox responsibly. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever had a Scarlett in your neighborhood? And don't forget to subscribe, because in the world of HOA stories, karma is always just one voltage away.